Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name's Amanda and I'm glad that you could join me today. Today we're going to start something a little bit different. We're going to look at the Abrahamic religions, so Islam and Judaism, as well as Christianity. That's not an Abrahamic religion, but it has ties to there. We're going to look at those three religions in particular. And we're going to look specifically at symbols that are commonly associated with them or that they use and what they actually mean so we can gain a better understanding of the different religions. Okay, so today we're going to start with Islam, just because that's where I thought we should start. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing when you think of Islam, you might picture their flag. It is currently a green flag with a crescent and a star next to it. And everything in Islam has a meaning. And so the flag, you might recall, at one time was red. And it changed from red to green. And that was because there was a change in the leadership of the Ottoman Empire. So that's why the color change was. The crescent moon is frequently associated with the Muslim faith, and that's because they follow the lunar calendar, very similar to the Judaic tradition of following the lunar calendar as well. So that's why they have the crescent moon. The five-pointed star was added throughout Islam's history to represent the five pillars of Islam. If you want to learn more about the five pillars of Islam, feel free to look back on when I explored that and I explored particularly the five pillars of Islam, what they are, what they mean. Basically, it's the quintessential portion of what makes Islam Islam. So that's why their flag is green and has a crescent as well as a five-pointed star. So there you go. Now, the next thing that you might think of is, or you might have heard a reference to a place called Mecca or Kaaba Mecca. Basically, it's like the most sacred site in all of Islam. Okay, you might wonder, well, okay, why is it so special? That's the place that they believe Prophet Muhammad was born. So at that place, there is a giant, looks like a giant box, just helping make sure that is a sacred space. There's a great mosque there as well where people can go, and it's actually one of the pillars of Islam is that you are supposed to make a pilgrimage to Mecca at least one time in your life. So it is the quintessential center of Islam. As a matter of fact, even when they pray, they will always angle their prayer mats towards Mecca. They will. So speaking of prayer mats, let's go ahead and talk about them next. So when they pray 5 times a day. They pray at sunrise, at noon, at midday, at sunset, and in the evening. So they pray 5 times during the day. And the reason they pray 5 times during the day is because they believe they're constantly making mistakes. They're constantly sinning. They're constantly missing the mark. So that prayer is supposed to kind of bring their awareness back to themselves again and help them kind of reset or redo and try to make better choices the next time. And they take that very seriously. So before they pray, they have to do something called wudu, and that's where they cleanse themselves. They have to wash things 3 times. I'm going to talk about the importance of number 3 later. But they have to wash their body 3 times, their hands, their face, their feet, things like that. And they have to be clean and pure so they can pray. When they pray, they put down this mat. It kind of looks like a yoga rug, but a little bit wider and a little bit longer. And they put this mat down, and in Muslim homes, they will actually leave the mat down, and they will probably have a whole room that is designated as the prayer room, because the mats have to be facing towards Mecca every time they pray. And there's apps where they can figure out where Mecca is. But in a lot of Muslim homes, they have a prayer room specifically designated for that. So the mat itself is supposed to represent a barrier, or not represent, it is a barrier between clean and unclean. So unclean being the ground and clean being them because they just did wudu, or that act of cleaning of themselves. So that's the prayer mat. Some of them are very intricately very intricately decorated, and some have meaning behind the decorations, and some just are pretty, and that's okay too. And there's also prayer mats that are very simple, but they have different requirements as to what's in their area, which is why many in the Muslim tradition have a room specifically designated for that, because it's tough sometimes to get to a space where you can pray and just be in that state of mind. So that's the prayer mats, okay? So when they pray, they do this, it's called active prostration. So it's basically they bend down in different ways. They may bend at the waist, they may bend and like kneel. They will kneel and then put their head on the ground as well. And every movement in that prayer has a specific meaning and specific words that go along with it. Now, I am going to be completely honest that I do not speak Arabic, and I would butcher their language, so I'm not going to attempt to say that prayer out of respect for them. But when they are saying the prayer, they do specific movements, and that act of prostration, or like fully laying down, is supposed to be a physical representation, a physical reminder to that they need to totally submit to the will of Allah, which is what they call God. So that physical total submission, mind, body, and soul to Allah is demonstrated through the act of prostration. Okay, the next one is very intriguing to me because I didn't know anything about it before this video, quite honestly. It's called the misbah beads. What it is, it's a loop of beads. It's either 33 beads or 99 beads, depending on which one you get. And then in the middle, they will join together, and it's either held together by like a tassel or a long skinny thing that the closest I can describe it as is like a fishing lure. So that middle portion, if it's the tassel, the knot is supposed to be representation of Allah and how he holds everything together. And the tassel parts that come down are the roots that go on from ancestors before. And if it's the fishing lure, it's supposed to be that sense of strength and unity in Allah. So basically that middle portion is a testimony to Allah being the center of it. And then along the band of the misbah beads is like I said, 33 or 99 prayers. 33 or 99 beads, I'm so sorry. And with each bead, there's a certain chant that they do. Now in the circle, there are two different knots, and the knots are indications as to when they're supposed to switch to the other chant. Again, I do not speak Aramaic, so I'm not going to demonstrate what those prayers sound like, but basically it's praising Allah and that he is the one true God, and basically just kind of reaffirming your faith and your belief in him. The misbah beads are a silent chant, so you don't say anything out loud, you just say it in your head. And it's actually believed by just running the misbah beads through your fingers, because you know what you're supposed to say, that counts as well. So if it's 33 beads in your loop, then you would do that 3 times. And again, we're going to talk about the numbers and what they mean in a little while, okay? So just hold on. We're going to talk about colors and numbers after we talk about some of their symbols. In the Muslim tradition, they want to keep the misbah beads close to them throughout the day. So some will wrap it around their wrist, some will put it in their pocket, some will put it in their car and hang it from like a rear view mirror or something like that. But they want it to be close, but they also believe that you should keep it clean. So if you are working in healthcare, for example, putting it on your wrist is probably not the best idea. The only requirement is that at the end of the day, you need to take the beads home with you. They need to be in your presence. And they are very particular about how they keep them, to keep them safe and clean, because they are a holy thing. That's part of how you pray to Allah. And the next one that we're going to talk about is the lanterns. The lanterns are also frequently known as Ramadan lanterns, and they are specifically for the month of Ramadan, which is a month in the Muslim calendar. It's the month that they fast during daylight hours. So that's typically not a happy, joyous month, but it is a time of great connection for the Muslim people. So they have the Muslim lanterns out as decorations to remind them while they're in this month of trials and difficulties that they are doing so, they are living the Muslim faith to bring light to the world, to teach others and awaken their awareness of Allah to the rest of the world. So that's why they have lanterns. The next symbol you will see on food, and it's called halal. And basically halal means permissible in Aramaic. So this would be on meat in particular is spoken of when they talk about halal, and it refers to the appropriate slaughtering of meat. So the animal has to be treated in a certain way while it was alive. During the slaughtering process, the facility has to be of a certain cleanliness. There has to be certain people on scene. They have to perform the slaughter in a certain way to make sure that there's no harm to the animal. Besides slaughtering them, they want to make it as peaceful as possible. So halal is a very important aspect of Muslim tradition. It's similar to kosher, but slightly different. So a lot of things that are kosher are halal, but not always. So the halal is the special symbol that they look for. Okay, the next one that we're going to talk about is the cross of Agadir. And it is frequently known as the Muslim cross, but some in the Islamic faith take insult to saying that it's the Muslim cross because they feel that they're trying to be compared to Christianity then with their cross. But some very much love the symbolism behind the cross of Agadir. So we're going to talk about it, and if you happen to be Islamic and you don't like the cross of Agadir, go ahead and fast forward it. That's just fine with me. So the cross of Agadir, it looks like a cross. I'll put a picture up here. It looks like a cross, but like with wings in between them, and frequently has a circle on top with like some lines coming out of it. Doesn't have to, but frequently it does. The circle on top is supposed to be Muhammad, that's bringing the light in. In the center of that cross wing area it's normally like a one dot or one symbol or nothing at all. And that's supposed to represent the oneness of Allah. That he is the one true God and that he is the creator of everything. That's where everything starts. The 4 posts that go out from that, they believe are like 4 arms that are stretched out for protection to ward away evil. They're spreading their light at the same time. Lots of different reasons for the 4 arms coming out of Allah. And then if you choose to wear the cross of Agadir, and again, some people do not, they think it's idolatry and they don't want to be a part of it. But some people do. They believe if they wear it, they are essentially creating a protective amulet around themselves. It's shielding away negativity, it's shielding away evil, it's making their presence and their spirit and their aura more holy, more clean, more safe. So if you wear the cross of Agadir, it tends to mean that you are a very faithful person, you're very devout in your practices, that you are, sorry, I can't read my note, that you are protected from all negativity and evil, like I said before. So some people wear it, some people don't. That's just their choice. So the next one is by far what I thought was the most interesting portion of Islam, and that's the Hamsa hand. And I was particularly interested in this because in my research, I learned that the Hamsa hand actually is used through many religions. So we're going to talk about all the different stories and why they use it and all these different things when I talk about their religions. But today we're going to talk about the Islamic way that they use Hamsa hand. So the Hamsa hand in Islam is also known as the hand of Fatima. Fatima was Prophet Muhammad's daughter. Okay? And you may wonder, okay, why is this called the hand of his daughter? Like, sounds weird. So there's a story that goes along with it. Shall I tell you? Okay, I will. So the story goes that Fatima was at home. She was cooking. She was stirring something. And she was startled while she was cooking by her husband walking in with a new bride or a new wife. She didn't know anything about it. She was startled. She was taken aback. She drops the spoon on the floor. But because of the culture, she can't really say anything and do anything. She continues to stir whatever it was, whether it was soup or whatever, with her bare hand in the boiling, whatever it is. After she regains control of herself and her husband apparently leaves, she pulls her hand out of the pot and her hand has now switched. And she still has a thumb, but she has 3 fingers, and then the pinky has turned into another thumb. And they say that that was a miracle because she didn't feel any pain in this whole thing. Her hand changed because she was so brave. So the Hamsa hand in Islam is known or a symbol for bravery as well as power. So because Fatima had such bravery to endure that and she was able to control her emotions and not act out, that's why they call it the hand of the Fatima, the hand of Fatima. Okay? So it's known as an icon of protection, and there's lots of parts of the Hamsa hand that have different meanings. So let's explore that, okay? So the Hamsa hand's position itself means a great deal. If the fingers are up, it's a sign of protection. You're keeping evil away. If the fingers are down, it's a sign of welcome and openness. Okay? In the middle of the hand, there is typically an eye. Now, there are different interpretations as to what that eye is. Some believe that it's the eye of Allah and that he's all-knowing and all-seeing. And some believe it's the evil eye, which is looking for wrong and keeping it away. Okay? There are frequently decorations on the Hamsa hand. So if there are colors, all the colors have different meanings, and I'm going to talk about the colors in a little bit. I'm going to give you a little teaser. If there are pictures, they also have meanings. So frequently there's the picture of a lotus flower. The lotus flower is supposed to symbolize peace and purity. So like that's just, if you're going through a hard time, they will frequently, my apologies, put a lotus flower on the Hamsa hand to help you bring peace and purify your soul. If you have a fish or a fish tail on your Hamsa hand, that's supposed to be a symbol of good luck and fertility as well as rebirth. So fish apparently are good luck in the Islamic culture, but that is something that could be on their Hamsa hand. something interesting that I did not know before. Okay? Let's move on to our last two portions. We've talked a lot about the symbols within Islam and what they mean and how they're used. So now we're going to talk about numbers as well as colors. So in any religion, the numbers have different meanings and colors may have different meanings assigned or associated with them. Today we're going to talk about numbers first because numerology is very important and influential within the Islamic faith. They are so important because they believe that any of the symbols or letters, so I believe they're called symbols within the Aramaic system, but they are all corresponding to a number. So they believe that every letter has a number's value, and so your words are more powerful because they have numbers assigned to it. So we're going to talk about just 4 of them today. Okay, so number 1 in Islam is associated with Allah, that there is one true God, Allah. And the number 3, again, and remember the Bismillah beads, it has the number 3 as far as you could have 33 beads in your Bismillah bead link. Number 3 is associated with your soul. So they believe that with 33 links in there, it's working on your soul. Okay, now if you have 33 beads in your Bismillah bead link, you have to do that 3 times. Again, each time you do it for your soul, to cleanse your soul, to bring your soul closer to Allah. Okay, whereas if you have 99 beads, that has the number 9. In Islam, 9 is the symbol for perfection. 3 times 3 is 9. If your soul is purified, you will have perfection. You will go to Jannah, which is like their paradise. And then the last number that we're going to talk about is 786. This is a very holy phrase in the Islamic culture. It's known as the Bismillah, and essentially it's the first line in the Holy Book of Quran. And I'm going to do the English version because, again, I don't know how to speak Aramaic. It's essentially in the name of God, the most holy, the most merciful, the most gracious. It's basically a way of calling Allah. So next, let's talk about the colors, okay? So in colors, there are 3 that we're going to talk about. There are 3 that are very commonly associated with different things. The first one has an association that's rather similar in many areas, in many different religions, and that's the color white. And white in Islam stands for purity and peace. So on Fridays during prayer services, you will frequently see people dressed in white. You will. It is a sacred color, so they will wear it when they are completing their sacred rituals. So if they are making the trip or the pilgrimage to Mecca, you will most commonly see people dressed in white because it's a sacred ritual, okay? The next color is a color that represents protection, and that's the color of blue, particularly like a teal blue. So if you have an evil eye on your Hamsa hand, it's typically blue, a teal blue. In mosques, you will frequently find the color blue because blue is a symbol for protection. Okay, and the last color is very important. It's the color green. So it is the color of the Islamic flag. It is also the color associated with Jannah. Jannah is their paradise again. And that's because in Islam, they believe in Jannah, the people who live there, the inhabitants of Jannah, wear green. And not only green, they wear green silk. So they wear green silk because it more closely binds them with nature. So green is a color of surrender. Green is a color of divine grace because it also represents Jannah. The things you learn. The things you learn. So thanks so much for joining me today. I will join you again soon, and we're going to talk about Christianity symbols next. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.